welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be exploring something called spherical leadership.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it is. So we've got Joleen Bales' notes
Okay.
and a full transcript from a leadership podcast that she was featured on
Got it.
with a host named Tammy Kibel.
Okay.
Now, what makes this really interesting is Joleen's background.
Okay.
She was a pilot in the Marine Corps.
Wow. Okay.
So how does that experience translate to a fresh take on leadership, especially, for those of us in the business world?
Well, that's what is so fascinating about this, is that her military background really gave her a strong foundation in that traditional top-down leadership style.
Right.
Which is, of course, crucial in those high-stakes situations.
Absolutely.
But she recognized that there were some limitations in, other contexts.
So she took that linear approach and kind of like curved it.
Exactly. She went beyond the hierarchy and envisioned leadership as a sphere of influence, extending in all directions, up, down, and across.
I like it.
And so that is really the essence of spherical leadership, leading your superiors, your peers, and your subordinates, all without relying on formal authority.
Hold on. Leading your superiors. Doesn't that sound a bit rebellious?
Not at all. Think about it this way. Have you ever seen a colleague, maybe not even in a management role, who somehow gets everyone on board with their ideas?
Yeah.
That's spherical leadership in action.
Oh.
It's about building relationships, trust, and influence at all levels.
Okay, so it's not about throwing out the org chart. It's more about recognizing that leadership potential exists everywhere.
Precisely.
Okay.
Anyone, regardless of their position, can be a leader.
This is where that Marine Corps connection comes in, right?
Yes. Joleen talks about how Marines, even years after serving, they just had this instant camaraderie.
Oh, yeah.
She saw a fellow Marine across the street and she was like, I get you. I know where you've been.
Oh, wow.
That shared experience, that sense of purpose and trust is something that she believes can be cultivated in any team.
I see what you mean. So it's less about giving orders and more about creating that we're all in this together feeling.
Yes. But Tammy Kibel, the podcast host, she pushed back a little bit.
Oh, really?
She asked Joleen, is spherical leadership just about influence and persuasion?
That's a good question.
Right. And Joleen's answer, absolutely not. It's much broader than that.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more.
So spherical leadership also means building bridges across different departments, even reaching out to vendors or partners, really understanding how everything is interconnected.
Yeah.
And Joleen even highlighted the importance of mentorship.
Okay.
Anyone can be a mentor regardless of their title.
So it's about seeing leadership opportunities in every interaction.
Yes, and recognizing that every decision has ripple effects.
Right.
Spherical leaders consider how their choices will impact everyone, not just their immediate team.
Now I'm thinking about how we can actually apply this. Joleen mentions this Venn diagram model that she learned from a pricing expert.
Wait, pricing, how does that connect to leadership?
That's what I thought. But it turns out this Venn diagram is a brilliant diagnostic tool.
Okay.
It's got 3 overlapping circles: leadership culture and skill sets.
Interesting.
What's so insightful about this model is that it helps you see what might be out of balance in a team or an entire organization.
Okay.
Each circle needs to be the right size for things to work harmoniously. Too much leadership, for example, could create a really stifling environment where no one feels comfortable sharing ideas.
Exactly.
Or too much emphasis on culture might mean that everyone's having fun but not actually getting much done.
Right.
And if the skill set circle is too big, you might have incredibly talented people, but they're all working in silos.
Absolutely.
So spherical leadership helps you spot these imbalances. And then what? You just tell everyone what's wrong?
Well, that's where the leading without authority part comes in.
Right.
It's about using your influence, your relationships, your understanding of the system to nudge things in the right direction.
This is giving me so many ideas. I can already see how it applies to my own workplace.
Yeah.
Let's dive deeper into this Venn diagram model.
Okay.
After a quick break, listeners, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more on spherical leadership. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before the break, we were looking at that Venn diagram, with its 3 circles.
Right.
Leadership, culture, and skill sets. And what I'm loving about this model is that it's not just about identifying problems. It's also about finding solutions.
Yeah, it is a practical tool. It's like a roadmap for creating a more balanced and effective organization.
Okay, so let's say you're in a company where leadership is like the dominant force.
Right.
Lots of top-down directors, maybe a bit of a my way or the highway mentality.
Okay.
How could you use spherical leadership to bring things back into balance?
Well, remember, spherical leadership is about influence, not control.
Right.
So instead of trying to wrestle control from the top, you could focus on fostering a more collaborative culture from within.
I see.
Maybe you suggest some team-building activities or champion a peer mentorship program.
Okay.
Even small changes can have a ripple effect.
So it's about working within the system
Uh-huh.
to create positive change. It's not about overthrowing the leadership.
Right.
It's about leading the leadership.
I like that. Leading the leadership.
Yep.
And it can be done subtly.
Okay.
Imagine you're trying to present a new idea to a very directive boss.
Right.
Instead of framing it as your idea, find ways to connect it to their goals and priorities.
Okay.
Make them feel like they're part of the solution.
That's brilliant. It's like you're using your understanding of their perspective to guide them towards a new way of thinking.
Exactly. And this works across the board.
Okay.
Let's say you're in a company that's amazing on culture, but maybe a little light on leadership. Everyone's happy, but are they actually achieving their goals?
That's where that sense of shared purpose comes in.
Yeah.
It's not about sucking the fun out of the culture. It's about subtly reminding people what they're working towards.
Yeah, I completely agree. You could also look for opportunities to develop leadership skills organically.
Okay.
Maybe you start an informal lunch and learn series, or you simply offer to mentor a colleague who shows leadership potential.
So even in a laid-back environment, you can still plant those seeds of spherical leadership.
Yeah.
Now, what about a company that's all about skill sets?
Okay.
They hire the best of the best, but maybe those talented people aren't working together effectively.
Right.
That's where the silo problem comes in, right?
Yeah, and that's where cross-functional projects can be a game changer.
Oh, okay.
By encouraging teams to work together to share their expertise, you can break down those silos.
Okay.
And create a much more collaborative and innovative environment.
It's like we were saying earlier, everything is interconnected. Spherical leadership helps you see those connections and leverage them for the benefit of the entire organization.
And remember, Joleen highlighted how leadership isn't confined to the walls of an organization.
Right.
You can apply these principles to your interactions with vendors, partners, even thought leaders in your field.
So how do we do that? How do we lead people we don't actually have authority over?
It goes back to building those authentic relationships.
Right.
Reach out to people you admire, ask for their advice, find ways to collaborate on projects that benefit both parties.
Okay.
Remember, mentorship doesn't have to be a formal thing.
Yeah.
It can simply be about learning from the people around you.
This is making me realize how much untapped leadership potential there is everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not about waiting for someone to give you permission to lead. It's about taking the initiative.
Absolutely.
And creating those opportunities for yourself and others.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It can be as simple as speaking up in a meeting, sharing a helpful resource with a colleague, or simply offering words of encouragement.
As we wrap up part 2, I'm feeling very inspired. I can already see how I can apply these principles in my own life.
That's great.
Spherical leadership isn't just a theory, it's a mindset.
And a powerful one. We've still got more to unpack in part 3.
Okay.
We'll be right back after a short break with more on spiritual leadership. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been exploring this idea of spiritual leadership, how it goes beyond that traditional hierarchy.
Right.
And empowers anyone to lead from any position.
And what's really resonated with me throughout our discussion is that spherical leadership is a journey, not a destination.
You're right. It's not like you wake up one morning and bam, you're a spherical leader.
Right.
Joleen even talks about how her own leadership style evolved over time, building on her military experience but adapting to different contexts.
I love that she acknowledges the growth.
Right.
It's a reminder that we're all constantly learning and refining our approach to leadership.
Okay, so let's say you're early in your career, or maybe you're in a role where you don't have a lot of formal authority.
Right.
How do you even start to cultivate that spherical leadership mindset?
Well, it goes back to those core principles we've been talking about, building relationships, fostering trust, and becoming a go-to person for your expertise.
Yeah.
Think about it. You've probably encountered colleagues who, despite not having a fancy title, somehow manage to influence decisions and inspire those around them.
It's like they have this magnetism. People are drawn to their energy and their ideas.
Exactly. And a lot of that comes from genuinely caring about the people you work with.
Right?
It's about actively listening, offering support, and celebrating their successes.
Yeah.
It's about being a reliable teammate and building those authentic connections.
And remember that Marine Corps anecdote? How Joleen felt that instant camaraderie with a fellow Marine?
Right.
That sense of shared experience, that trust. Those are things we can cultivate in any team and any organization.
Absolutely. And those connections can extend beyond your immediate team.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to reach out to people in other departments, even those in leadership positions.
Yeah.
Share your ideas, offer your help, find ways to collaborate on projects.
So Joleen talked about leading upwards. How do you influence someone who's in a position of authority
Right.
without stepping on toes?
It's about being strategic,
Yeah.
frame your suggestions in a way that aligns with their goals and priorities.
Yeah.
Highlight the benefits for the team or the organization as a whole.
Right.
And always be respectful, even if you disagree with their approach.
This is making me realize how powerful it can be to reframe leadership as less about command and control and more about influence and inspiration.
I love that. Influence and inspiration.
Yeah.
These are the hallmarks of a spherical leader.
Right.
And remember, leadership isn't confined to the workplace.
Right.
You can apply these principles to your community involvement, your volunteer work, even your personal relationships.
It's a way of life.
It is.
It's about recognizing that every interaction is an opportunity to lead, to inspire, to make a positive impact.
And one of my favorite takeaways from Joleen's conversation with Tammy was that story about the Marine Corps birthday ball.
Oh, yeah.
How they honor both the oldest and the youngest Marine present.
Right. It symbolizes how leadership isn't about age or experience.
Right.
It's about embodying those core values of service, loyalty, and commitment to something bigger than yourself.
And those values are universal.
Yeah.
Whether you're leading a team at work, captaining your kid's soccer team, or simply being a supportive friend, those principles of spherical leadership can guide you.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into spherical leadership, what are some key takeaways our listeners can walk away with?
First and foremost, remember that leadership is a journey.
Right.
Embrace the process of learning, growing, and adapting your leadership style over time.
And don't be limited by traditional notions of authority.
Yeah.
You can lead from any position at any age by building relationships, fostering trust, and being a force for positive change.
Think spherically. See the interconnectedness of everything and everyone around you.
I love that.
Recognize that your actions, your words, your very presence has the power to influence and inspire those in your sphere.
That's it for our deep dive into spherical leadership. We hope you've gained some valuable insights that you can apply to your own life, both personally and professionally.
And remember, this is just the beginning of your spherical leadership journey.
Yeah.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep leading in your own unique way.
Until next time, fellow deep divers, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep leading spherically.